Welcome back to Rare Gameroom Gaming. Today we're diving into one of the most debated, misunderstood, and fascinating games ever released on the original Nintendo. This is Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, a game that boldly broke away from the formula that made the first Legend of Zelda a classic and dared to try something completely different. By the end of this video, we're going to talk about how this game was made, why it plays so differently, how it was received at launch, how it fits into the larger Zelda series, and why opinions on it have changed so much over the years. We'll also look at versions of the game, developer history, sales performance, comparisons to other titles both classic and modern, and even some lesser-known facts that many fans still don't realize today. And before we jump into it, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below, sharing your memories of Zelda 2 or what game you'd like us to cover next. It really helps the channel grow, and we truly appreciate the support. When the original Legend of Zelda released in 1986 on the original Nintendo, it changed video games forever. It offered players a massive open world, non-linear exploration, secrets hidden everywhere, and a sense of adventure that hadn't really existed before. It was a massive success both critically and commercially, especially in North America, where it became one of Nintendo's defining franchises almost overnight. Naturally, expectations for a sequel were sky high. But instead of simply repeating the same formula, Nintendo decided to experiment. Internally, the team felt that making the exact same game again would be boring, both for players and developers. So Zelda 2 became an experiment, a sequel that asked the question, what if Zelda played like nothing else on the system? Zelda II, The Adventure of Link was developed and published by Nintendo with direction from Tadashi Sugiyama and Yoichi Yamada, while Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka were still heavily involved in shaping the Zelda universe. This sequel gave more creative freedom to other team members. One interesting fact many fans don't know is that the side-scrolling combat system was inspired partly by Nintendo's work on action games and arcade-style experiences. The developers wanted swordplay to feel more technical, more precise, and more challenging. This led to the introduction of jumping attacks, shield positioning, and directional combat, which was incredibly ambitious for the original Nintendo. Another lesser-known detail is that experience points were added because the team wanted long-term progression that felt more like role-playing games popular on Japanese computers at the time. This made Zelda II one of Nintendo's earliest hybrids of action and RPG mechanics.
The Legend of Zelda continues.
Defeat your enemies, save the kingdom, use your sword.
I cannot help you.
Find the crystals. Rescue the princess.
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. And now, get into the latest Nintendo games, Ghostbusters 2 and Iron Sword. Only from Nintendo, now you're playing with power.
Unlike the top-down view of the original game, Zelda 2 uses a side-scrolling perspective for towns, palaces, and combat areas, while still keeping an overhead world map. This alone made the game feel completely different. Combat in Zelda 2 is far more demanding. Enemies block, counterattack, and require careful timing. Link can crouch, stab high or low, and use magic spells that add even more complexity. This wasn't just harder, it was deeper, and that depth intimidated many players at the time. The magic system itself was groundbreaking. Instead of collecting items and using them freely, magic points limited how often you could cast spells like Shield, Jump, Life, and Fairy. This forced players to think strategically, especially during long palace runs. Death also carried heavier penalties. Losing all lives sent Link back to the starting point, which made progress feel punishing, but also raised the stakes dramatically. Zelda II expanded the lore of the Zelda universe in ways that still matter today. The game introduced the concept of multiple Princess Zeldas and established the tradition that every princess in the royal family would be named Zelda. The backstory involves an ancient sleeping spell placed on Princess Zelda, and Link's quest is not just to save Hyrule, but to awaken her by restoring crystals to 6 palaces and ultimately confronting Dark Link, one of the earliest examples of a Shadow Self boss in gaming history. Dark Link remains one of the most iconic and symbolic boss fights in the entire series, representing mastery of the game's mechanics rather than flashy visuals. Despite its divisive gameplay, Zelda II, The Adventure of Link sold extremely well. It moved over 4 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling games on the original Nintendo. In North America, it was another huge success for Nintendo, helped by the popularity of the gold cartridge and the strength of the Zelda brand. Even players who struggled with the difficulty often owned the game, talked about it, and shared strategies at school or through magazines. At launch, Zelda II received strong reviews from gaming magazines, which praised its ambition, graphics, and depth. However, even early on, reviewers noted that it was significantly harder than the original. Over time, fan opinion became more divided. Many players loved the challenge and depth, while others felt it strayed too far from what Zelda should be. This split has followed the game for decades. Interestingly, modern re-evaluations have been kinder to Zelda II. Today, many fans appreciate its uniqueness and how many of its ideas influence later games, especially combat-focused titles like Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, which emphasize skill-based encounters and player mastery.
おばちゃん、これ見てこれ。
おお、ハイラルの紋章。リンクが16歳の時、左手の甲に紋章が現れる。それこそが真の勇者の証。アクションロールプレイングゲーム「ゼルダの伝説パート2リンクの冒険」。ここまで来たらやめられない。やればやるほどディスクシステム。
Zelda II, originally released on the Famicom Disk System in Japan before coming to the original Nintendo in cartridge form. The Disk System version allowed players to save progress without passwords, which was a huge advantage at the time. There was no arcade version of Zelda II, but the game has been re-released many times. It appeared on the Game Boy Advance as part of the classic NES series, later on Virtual Console services, and more recently through Nintendo Switch Online. There was never a Sega version, as the game remained a Nintendo exclusive, reinforcing Zelda as one of the company's most protected franchises. The Zelda series has gone on to include dozens of entries across home consoles and handhelds, from A Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and beyond. What's fascinating is that while Zelda II is often seen as the odd one out, its influence is still present. Experience systems, sword techniques, magic meters, and even towns with NPC dialogue all trace back to this game. Games like Adventure of Link-inspired indie titles and modern action RPGs owe more to this entry than many players realize. While Zelda II itself didn't receive a direct anime adaptation, its era heavily influenced the late 1980s Legend of Zelda animated series that would be portrayed outside of games. The Adventure of Link is not just a sequel, it's a bold experiment that dared to be different. It may not be everyone's favorite, but it's one of the most important games Nintendo ever made. Without it, the Zelda series might never have evolved the way it did. Its risks paved the way for innovation, and its legacy continues to be debated, studied, and appreciated by fans old and new. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Rare Gameroom Gaming, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. Let us know in the comments what memories you have with this game, whether you loved it, hated it, or finally beat it years later, and tell us what game you want us to cover next. Click on one of the videos on screen right now to keep watching, or hit the profile picture to subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.